So first and foremost thing that when we address a branding exercise is the vision of the promoters. Okay. That can be X, that can be Y, but the soul is the nurturing of that brand. In Marathi we call it samskar. Correct. Any business needs to structure after a certain point. Correct. There are certain psychological principles which get into the play here. Okay. So if at all you are building a smaller brand, then you yourself as a brand owner or a promoter can be connected to a customer. Then your story, if your story resonates with the customer, he will obviously buy your brand. Their products are as good as maybe a Samsung or any technology product, correct? But why does Apple have that brand value? Why does Apple have that customer drive?
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Aishwarya Kulkarni and you're listening to Dream Big, the podcast. This series is focused on engaging conversations that support entrepreneurial growth. We are focused on bringing insights and perspectives from people who are shaping businesses and supporting them grow. These people are in this journey contributing to other businesses in their growth as well. Our guest today is a bold blend between creativity, clarity, and business strategy, Dhruva Paknikar. Dhruva is a global design entrepreneur and the force behind Dominic's Design Global, one of the world's leading young design company. With over 500 brands crafted across the continents, Dhruva blends creativity and strategy, giving a distinctive brand identity that stands the test of the time. His work goes beyond building brand perception, trust, and market presence for businesses. An award-winning designer, 2-time TEDx speaker, and mentor to 100 plus businesses, Dhruva joins us today to unpack the real meaning of branding and how even the smallest businesses should consider branding for growth. Dhruva, we are happy to have you here. Shall we dive in?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so over the years, we have been listening to many brands and they have built over a long period of time.
Correct.
But businesses today, which are really small, but they look up to these brands, and when they understand branding as a concept, they want to do like those other big brands do.
Correct.
But I'm sure branding has a history and you
Yes.
have learned it for many years now. So would you like to, help us understand what is the evolution of branding and why is it playing such a crucial role in today's business scenario?
Correct. So, excellent question. The history of branding goes back to the humanity when they had cattle.
Okay.
As old as that.
Okay.
So, what essentially is branding? Is it started basically when they wanted to number their cattle. First, in order to count it, and the second, it to make people understand or make other farmers understand that this cattle is mine.
Okay.
So it was a kind of an authoritarian thing. This cattle is mine, and that why they basically stamped or branded the cattle. That's how branding started.
Okay.
So that's the start point of branding, and then it basically evolved. So in the mid times, it basically was authenticity. So a wine bottle or something which was old enough or authentic enough, or the manufacturing of it or the source of it could be authenticized.
Got it.
That's why they used the brand. After that, basically branding grew into visual communication, verbal communication, all types of communication which is there.
Got it.
But it doesn't limit there. What branding is now is, if you see the brands these days, like Google or WhatsApp for that matter,
Correct.
we say Google it, or you'll always ask me to WhatsApp me.
Correct.
Or share a story on Instagram, something like that.
Right.
So these days brands say use me. It's not mine anymore. It's not authoritarian anymore. It's not the source anymore. Nowadays brands say use me, and that is the definition of why a brand exists right now. Is for the customer to acquire that kind of a knowledge in terms of using that brand. Correct?
Okay.
And that usage of the brand is now defined by the customer and not the brand.
Wonderful.
So the
Yeah.
perception is defined by the customer. So now the brand is a feeling, or brand is a emotion which is there in the customer's mind.
Got it.
How you create it is something that we will discuss upon.
Absolutely. Wow, it's interesting. I never thought that it would track back to the cattle era of the human whole journey.
Again, that's where the term branded was defined.
Right. But today, you mentioned that today's brand talk about use me, or the
Yeah.
usability of the product or
Yeah.
service that they be talking about.
Correct.
But when we are interacting with businesses, or we ask them about branding, they would say yes, we have done our branding when they are done with their logo or the packaging part of
Correct.
it. So what I'm coming to is most of the businesses understand branding as logo kiya hai, tagline hai, color hai. So is branding limited to that, or is it much more? So if you can talk about
Yeah.
what branding is in today's business, mainly when we are talking about the small businesses in the
Correct.
country, and what are the other elements that one business should consider when they are saying कि okay हमने branding किया है.
Okay. So logo, if you call logo a face of the brand, it is just like 5 to 10% of the entire brand.
Oh, okay.
Or any kind of visual communication that the brand does, Instagram posts or letterheads, all these things are merely 5 to 10% of the entire branding exercise which the company should go through. Okay. Any company should not go through a branding exercise per se, because they are going through it anyways.
Okay.
So that is anyways a ongoing process. What brand designers do is enhance that process.
Okay.
Okay. So the whole idea is that brand is the soul of the company. So if we think not as a business but as an individual, being a business, so what we wear is something that we visually communicate. Correct?
Right.
Where we wear it. So for example, you wear a traditional dress at a traditional program event. Correct. You wear formal dresses at office,
Right.
or maybe when you are going out for a formal event. Correct.
Yes.
Then you wear casual clothes when you are at the beach.
True.
Correct. So that is how a brand communicates with the target audience it is with.
Got
Correct. That is the outer base of how brand should communicate. Correct. But the soul is the nurturing of that brand. In Marathi we call it samskar. Correct.
Right.
So depending upon what nurturing the brand has or the individual has gone through, that individual will decide how he will dress at that particular thing.
True.
What he will say at that particular thing.
True.
If you go on a beach with your friends and you start talking about work, right, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
And eventually that friends will teach you.
True.
Correct.
Yes.
If you go to a corporate event and you talk very leniently and you talk very harshly otherwise, those people will kind of have a problem with you. Correct.
Absolutely.
So if you take this whole philosophy into a brand or into an individual organization, as a company, as a business, that is what the brand is. And then what you wear, what you say, how you say it, all these things are the periphery, which are the communication strategies. Okay.
Got it.
And then if you want to go somewhere, if you want to go and introduce yourselves, if you want to go and offer something out, that is the marketing aspect of it. Correct. So what I believe is brand is the soul of the organization, and that happens everywhere. So for example, let me just pull this question a little bit.
Sure.
An example is a normal grocery shop around the corner, anywhere.
Correct.
Do they have brands? Yeah. Yes, they have brands.
Yes.
Maybe they don't have a visual communication appeal. Correct. But customer understands what kind of products they have.
True.
Customer understands when they go in, when they ask for a product, how prompt the service is. If that person who is at the desk, he basically, if he kinds of ignores the person, ignores the customer,
Correct.
then that customer won't go to that brand, to that shop again. Correct. So that always from the beginning of all these businesses, small businesses, they are subconsciously doing a branding exercise.
Okay.
Now consciously doing it is like exercising. We are walking here and there. We are at the end of the day burning calories.
Correct.
But exercising will basically burn your calories the way you want it and make you the way you want yourself to be. Similar happens with the smaller brands as well.
Got it.
So that exercise you need to have, because you need to have all these things as well. But branding everyone is doing, everyone does from the start of their business. That is something that everyone thinks about subconsciously and unknowingly.
Got it.
If I might say.
Right. So what I understand is branding is a broad term, and it's obviously not just restricted to the tangible
Correct.
parts that business
Correct.
usually refers to it.
Correct.
And you did mention about few of the things like the service or the approach that business might have over
Correct.
the years. But are there any specific elements, like if you have to list a few, say 5 elements other than the tangible parts? One could be
Yes.
service, like you mentioned. But any
Yes.
more, like probably 4 more elements that you can say this is all builds a brand?
Okay, so first and foremost thing that when we address a branding exercise is the vision of the promoters. Okay, that can be X, that can be Y, that can be a vision which can be done in maybe 40 years, 50 years. Correct. The second aspect is the white space of the market. What space your brand has to be built in. Correct.
Okay.
The third thing is the customer centric approach, where what kind of customers there are, what kind of target audience there is, and what kind of likings they have, where we can push them, where we cannot push them.
Got it.
Correct. Where we can challenge their psychology.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
And then there is a complete base of mass psychology.
Okay. Right.
So a person reacts to something in a certain way, in a certain demography, in a certain economic zone, in a certain country. So we need to address all these things while we are saying something.
Got it. Got it.
Just as an example, if maybe a sweet or an ice cream shop, if they brand themselves in red in India, it will be harder for them than branding themselves in different colors altogether.
Okay. So
Correct.
color palette is one of
the smaller parts of the entire thing. How the typeface is, how the visual communication is, what kind of visuals you are putting out. That is the one part of it. And otherwise, all these things are the core parts of it.
Got it.
Where it starts with the vision of the customer.
Got it. Perfect. So when you mentioned that it is a continuous process, and even
Correct.
without the businesses realizing they're actually building a brand.
Yes.
But most of the times when we are mainly talking about the small businesses, most of them do not start with a plan that they have, compulsorily identified the target audience, compulsorily
Correct.
have identified their USP. Most
Correct.
of them don't start that
Correct.
way. But now over the years, say after 5-6 years of the business, they now want to make the exercise part of the business, which is
Yes.
actually deliberately doing branding.
Yes.
So is it too late for such businesses ki for last 5-6 years they have not really deliberately thought about branding?
Not at all. Not at all. They have not thought about it deliberately, as you rightfully mentioned.
Correct.
They have thought about it though.
Correct. So
Okay, so they have that kind of an approach where they have thought about the customer. They have interacted with the customer. Even a smallest shop. So for example, there was a great person, Pula Deshpande. There is an episode of him where he talked about a panwala. Okay, and panwala as a culture. Right? Why panwala at that specific locations were famous or where they had their businesses growing is because a panwala understands what your need is once you told him at one time, and then whenever you come, that panwala gives you the exact pan that you order.
Right.
Correct. So that panwala is basically knowing that customer. That is the first part of that customer centric journey. Correct. Then that panwala knows where to put where the location should be.
Right.
Correct. Then the white space is there, of course. The 3-4 panwalas, if they are side by side, there is a different story to it. That is there in these years. I'll come to it afterwards.
Yes.
But the location is where it matters. So if there are many hotels around, and if the panwala puts his shop there,
correct,
basically the increase of customers will be there. Correct.
True.
So all these things they have been thinking. And to answer your question, if they want to structure it, then it makes a lot of sense.
Got it.
Correct.
Got it.
Any business needs to structure after a certain point. Correct. All kinds of structuring should be done. One is the supply chain structure should be there. Right. Then the systems should be structured. The employee management, the HR system should be structured. Talent management. Then manufacturing processes should be structured. Usually those are structured way before because it is capital intensive. But otherwise all these things need to be structured. So that has a huge brand element which needs to be structured. So there is no right time to do it and there is no wrong time to do it.
Okay.
Correct. But you have to do it. You have to do it consciously in these days and consciously build that for a longer time and consciously build it for the customer you are aiming to have.
Got it. When you say consciously build it, and as I said, they are doing it, but they don't know about it.
Correct.
So the point they decide to do it, what are those things probably they should note down what they have done over the past 5-6 years, which will help them actually plan the brand strategy, as you're saying, to formalize it. What are those things that they probably write down or brainstorm with their core team so that they can understand, okay, this is what we were doing in name of brand, or this is what we were doing, and this was called branding, but we didn't know about it yet.
Correct.
So are there some things that they should note down or think about when they are now formalizing branding?
Okay. So the first and foremost thing they should note down is where they want to be. What is the real vision of their core team or of their core promoters, maybe 1 or 2 promoters.
Okay.
Correct. What their employees think about their brand. That is the second aspect of it. Correct. Then you need to understand what kind of messaging you are doing to the customer so far.
Okay.
What the customer is liking, what the customer is not liking. Have you been able to get back to your customer? Have you been able to get the customer back? Correct. Have you been able to talk with the customer, understand what kind of things he has experienced while dealing with your brand?
Right.
Correct. That's the third layer part of it. Then the fourth layer will be the vetting of what kind of messaging is thrown out. Whether someone is looking or not, what kind of communication I've been doing as a brand.
Correct.
That not necessarily means the Instagram or Facebook posts. It is you talking to someone about your brand. It is your employee talking to someone about the brand.
Correct.
Right. So any form of communication is the last layer, internally and externally.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
And then you ask yourself that all these parameters, are they matching your vision again? Where you want to be.
Correct.
Correct. Is this what your customers want to talk about you?
Right.
What you want them to talk about you.
Correct.
So all these things matter.
So
And that's why usually people get experts because they have that structures ready, they have that questions ready.
That's right.
Correct.
So what you are mentioning is branding mostly when has to be formal, it should go from inward to outward.
Correct.
Is what the vision should be like.
Definitely.
And you also mentioned about the social media part of one of the elements of formalizing branding. When there are businesses who have not been on social media yet, have been doing it on word of mouth kind of a marketing basis, but now want to go digital. Is there a branding tip that you would like to give to them in that journey of going digital with their business?
Social media is a very crowded market, is what I believe. The best way to have a brand recall is by word of mouth.
Okay.
It's still there.
Okay.
If you create an aspirational brand and if you are delivering to it, that will happen.
Okay.
Correct. Reaching your customers at the first go is something that media does. Any kind of media, social media, any kind of media, it's the first time of your customers. Okay. That is the core, that is the outline of the brand.
Okay.
The core of the brand is how you retain that customer, how you enhance that customer, how you add value to that customer.
Got it.
Or the client.
Got it.
If you are able to add value, then the customer is your marketing person.
Correct. Like you mentioned that social media is a crowded place. Most of the small businesses when they start, or even with the bigger businesses if you see, may it be a fashion brand or may it be a accessory brand or may it be a software like CRM kind of a software company or a startup that is working on it. There are many number of other businesses who do similar kind of products or similar kind of services. In all of this, will branding help a business to stand out from that, say 8 people are doing the same kind of apparel kind of a business, but can one business do something extra on the branding front that will help them stand out amongst those 8 people?
Okay. So if you look at the customers all around the globe, okay, as I told you earlier, there are certain psychological principles which get into the play here. Okay. So if at all you are building a smaller brand, then you yourself as a brand owner or a promoter can be connected to a customer. Then your story, if your story resonates with the customer, he will obviously buy your brand. Even though the same product he has for a little cheaper value to with anyone else.
Okay.
But if that person resonates with your story, he won't look at that small figures.
Got it.
Correct. But when a brand grows, you as a promoter cannot talk with all the customers.
Right.
Correct. So you need to create that strategy in terms of the communication aspects. Correct. So the customer at the end of the day responds to certain psychological things. So let me give an example of that.
Yes, please.
If you walk into a shop at Tirak Road, for that matter, you can see a lot of clothes hanging.
Correct.
Okay. If you walk at a Zara showroom, walk outside a Zara showroom, you will see just one or two mannequins.
Right.
There is a reason for that. Again, both the strategies are perfectly well.
Okay.
There is a strategy called horror vokai. There is a psychological principle called horror vokai. What it states that anything with respect to the space it is kept in, the value is directly proportional.
Okay.
So anything which has which is kept in a space, the value of that, the perceived value, not the value, the perceived value of that will be directly proportional to the space it's kept in. So if you see in museums, there is a huge wall and there is just one painting. Subconsciously, what the gallery does to you, it values the painting much more in your head than the actual value. And that's how the business of art works.
Got it.
Similar, if you see the same principle here, when there are lots of clothes, you get the value that it is economic. And the person who has economic taste, who wants to have an economic shopping experience, goes there, walks in it and buys it.
Got it.
Of course, they haggle as well.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
If you walk outside of Zara, you make it in your head, you create that value in your head automatically.
Correct.
And then you expect prices from Zara.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
Same happens with Louis Vuitton. Again, it's a kind of a much more exaggerated Zara.
Right.
They keep shoes in a big space. Every shoe is kept in a big space. A scarf is, beautifully kept in a space. It is not because they have space. It is because they get the space to increase the value and the perception of the person, of the brand as well as the product in that segment.
That's actually very interesting. Never thought that the space would have a direct proportion.
And there are hundreds of such principles.
But just one question which will follow this. Space is somewhere when we are talking about the physical shop.
Correct.
And that would probably carry the same psychology part that you mentioned. But again, coming back to the digital part, because most of the businesses, when talking about scale, they would choose a digital platform or a digital way to do that.
Correct.
How should this, probably a similar logic, be applied for the digital scaling of the business?
Go on to www.apple.com. You will see a huge screen and a small phone there. That's it. You scroll down, you will see a huge screen and a watch there. They exaggerate their products in such a way that the person increases the value in their heads.
Got it.
Their products are as good as maybe a Samsung or any technology product, correct? But why does Apple have that brand value? Why does Apple have that customer drive? Correct. Of course, this is the first part, the first communication part, we can say. And then they deliver some things in such a way that you are amazed by it.
Okay.
So I have a whole Apple iPhone packaging in my office, kept in my office. I can say that the 2007 first iPhone package and the 2025 24 Apple 16 package are the same. The sizes are of course different because of the phone sizes are different.
Correct.
But the space around the phone, where the logo is kept, where the name is kept, all these things are same for so many years
So
now.
many years.
Correct. So that is the consistency in branding.
Hmm.
So people going to coming to your question, people going to digital media, they can have space there. There is a real estate.
is
Your
real.
phone is a real estate.
Hmm.
Correct. Your screen is a real estate.
Got it.
You create your thing in that aspect, and then again, if you want to increase the value of it,
Got it.
if you want to make a business like Amazon where there are hundreds of things,
Correct.
from A to Z, correct, then you devalue things as well. That works the opposite as well.
Correct. Correct.
And then people will feel that, yeah, this is economic and I want to buy that.
Correct.
Correct. So if you see the Amazon versus Tata Click luxury apps, the space which things are kept are different.
Got it. So I think what you mentioned about first deciding what you want to communicate to the
Yes.
customer will probably decide these two factors.
Correct.
Like you mentioned.
Yes.
Dhruva, you mentioned about communication as one of the very important elements of branding.
Correct.
When we take examples, say like Patanjali or Fab India or Boat, so they have some association with what people think about when they hear the brand name. For example, Patanjali is about indigenousness, Fab India is about the authenticity, or Haldiram is about festivities, Boat is about music and pop culture. So the brand names now have got an association with the feeling that the customer has, or the psychological part of what customer
Correct.
thinks when they think about this
Correct.
brand. So how should small businesses focus on this communication of brand kind of a element? What would be your take on that?
So your examples exactly told what branding is. Okay. So for example, Fab India. Okay, it is a pure cotton, all these things.
Correct.
So if you say that deliberately, these brands have put in a common kind of a noun or maybe a verb associated directly with them.
Correct.
Okay, and that should happen with all the brands, because people remember things in pairs. Okay, if you see a psychological principle back again, people remember in pairs.
Okay.
So, for example, Dhruva Paknikar, what would I have? Maybe one or two things associated with me. One is design, of course.
Correct.
Second might be entrepreneurship. Correct. So, if you say, if you see any person, so for example, Mahatma Gandhi, people usually relate him with simplicity.
Correct.
Steve Jobs, thinking different.
Correct.
Correct. Picasso, art. Okay. So, even people for these ages have been associated with something. And that's what exactly brand does.
Okay.
Okay. So, there is a beautiful book called Keeping It Simple by a designer called Harmut Islinger.
Okay.
That is based on the story of Apple, right from Steve Jobs' time to Tim Cook's.
Okay.
Correct. So, the base of Apple was from the very start, it was keeping things simple. And it was the hardest thing to do at that time.
Correct.
Correct. No one had seen a very, simplistic, minimalistic computer in that industry.
True.
Again, minimalistic name in that industry
Right.
was not there. So, having an association of something with the brand is something which helps the brand very much.
Okay.
And that association should be very authentic.
Hmm.
That association should have a story
Story.
behind.
Okay.
So, if you say Rolls Royce, it poses luxury in it.
True.
If you see Bentley, okay, it has the engine part of it as well.
Correct.
If you see BMW, it has a sheer driving pleasure aspect of it.
True.
If you see Mercedes Benz, again it's a back seater car.
Correct.
So you know all these things, right? So that's how they associate. That's how you associate with that particular brand.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's what the newly formed brand should do.
Okay.
Correct. So coming back to your question, this is a very important aspect in the communication part of it. And once you have that, your visual communication, your verbal communication, all these things fall in the place. So Boat is a yo brand for youth. Correct. They have that red. They have red and black. They have pictures where youth is basically enjoying that.
Right.
Correct. They have things which are very subtle, simple, yet people are, having a crowded place, and then there is boat. So they also want to show that this is affordable. Because it's targeted to the youth, they don't have that much buying capacity.
Right.
Okay, so they have to show it's affordable. So if you see Boat's website, there are a lot of products.
Correct. The space part.
Correct, the space part again. So all these things matter, but that's the soul part. Again, coming back to that soul part, who you are, who you what your vision is, directly communicates with the adjective or the noun or the verb that is with you.
Correct.
So that is a clear and good classic branding example.
Wonderful. Also, when you were talking, I just thought that all these brands also, when you hear the brand, you know the brand and you go to the brand, which means that they have established the recall value that probably the communication itself has got it created. How much does a recall value play a role in branding, and how can it be created? What are those activities that the businesses should deliberately do to ensure that there is a recall value to their brand?
Okay, so recall value is the most important part of a brand these days. Okay, because without recall value, you won't be remembered.
Correct.
And now with all this mess that is happening around, all this information that you're bombarded with every day, that recall value is necessary when the decision point is there. So if I want to buy a car, the recall value is very important. If I want to buy a burger, then the recall value of McDonald's is very important. Okay, so that recall value is also crafted very meticulously and very structured. Okay, so a brand should analyze the customer and what kind of inputs, sensory inputs you are giving to the customer.
Okay.
Okay, this is a playbook again.
Yes.
So what kind of sensory inputs you are giving to the customer? If you can tap these sensory inputs in a particular way, which is the same, then it will have that recall value. So there was an amazing movie called Focus.
Okay.
So at that time, they basically had an exposure effect. So what exposure effect is, if you have seen the cricket stadium and then you have seen Oppo.
Correct.
You remember that.
Yes.
So you are exposed to something so many times that you start liking that. Correct. If I might say.
Yes.
Correct. So that is the exposure effect. And by exposure effect, you can change the behavioral patterns, the perceptions of people. Okay. So as many times as your feeling is exposed to that person in different stimuli, in different senses, the recall value will increase. If you hear a song for like 10 times, even if the song is the worst song that you have heard,
it sticks to the mind.
It sticks to the mind, and you start liking it. That's how the song blasts on Instagram work.
Correct.
That they know it, that if that person hears the song like 10 times, that song is in his mind, and then he will listen to that song. He'll go to a music streaming device, he'll listen to that song, and then the song will earn money. That's why Instagram made music free. So that's how the music industry works, and that's exactly how any industry works, for that matter, which comes to senses. And at the end of the day, any brand, any service, any product is doing something to your senses. So that's how it works. So recall value is the core, and it's very important. And when it is important is when the person wants to take a decision.
Correct. Got it. You mentioned about the communication and the recall value being consistent, mainly both for brands and service. So products and service. But products have a plus
tangible
point when
thing.
they have packaging and all of these things. Services most of the times become person centric because there are limited people delivering that service, and they don't have much of tangible aspect of branding with them. So how should service businesses focus on, say, the communication or the recall value or the whole branding part per se?
Okay, so you might have heard these days all products are also a service.
Yeah.
Because product is a tangible thing. People are going to use it. They have that edge.
Correct.
But the feeling which is created by that product is going to be intangible. So in any product, if you buy a car, if that car breaks down in the first month, maybe, that is going to create a feeling in your head about that brand.
Correct.
Okay, if the things start vibrating and starts making a noise, you will doubt the quality
Correct.
of the car.
Correct.
Correct. So all these things are emotional stimuli to people, and hence intangible. So for services, you're directly catering to the intangibles.
Got it.
How a person in your company communicates with the customer makes a huge perception about the brand in the customer's head. Okay, so if you see, all the big companies have SOPs for even their employees, even the things which the service providing, any service providing aspect that they have that SOPs. How to communicate, what to communicate with, what to lead with, all these things have scopes and SOPs right there.
Right.
Okay, and that's how a service company should brand itself.
With the standardizing of processes internally.
Exactly. So big service companies like Persistent, Infosys, all these are service companies at the end of the day.
Correct.
But they are big brands as well, because they have those kind of SOPs when it comes to their clients, when it comes to their customers, when it comes to people in general.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And after a certain point, people like the brands have to communicate with people in general as well.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Not just the customers.
Correct.
So all these things matter a lot.
When you were talking about communication and recall value, I remembered something which I recently learned, and about a very famous brand that obviously most of us have in our daily lives, which is Amul.
Yeah.
I recently learned that for last 59 years that Amul has been doing the hoarding campaigns. They're just doing it with 89 hoardings across the country. And it's unbelievable because it's such a huge brand, and as you said, it has such a
Correct.
huge recall value that you cannot talk about it. But I think they're doing it consistently, but even with the space part, they're very limited space is what they're using. So what would you talk about the consistency in branding, and how does that play a role to ensure you stay on top of the game?
Correct.
All the time?
So first thing that Amul did was get the best creative thing out. Okay, something like that was not done by any other brand, any other brand in this industry. Correct. So Amul basically did that in a fashion where it automatically caught the eyes. Correct. So once it did that, then all the game was about the consistency.
Correct.
So having the same thing over and over with so what they did was they blended a design style. Okay, they blended a creative style with current affairs.
Correct.
That's still what they are doing.
They are doing, right.
Correct.
Right.
So they have been consistent for so many years in that kind of messaging, and that's why it became famous. So of course, creativity and something different, something new, that aspect is a huge thing nowadays.
Correct.
Because everyone is just doing everything. Correct.
Right.
So that is a major aspect, and doing it consistently is something that creates a better business, not just a brand.
Sure. We spoke about communication, consistency.
Correct.
And we spoke about a lot of elements along with having the intention clear, having the target group clear, all of it. But to make sure that everything of these elements is taken care of when branding is formalized, are there any tools or templates that will help people to understand ki, okay, this is what I can use for this element of branding? If there are a few tools that people can access on web or otherwise, and how should they select which is the right tool for them? We are not endorsing any tool
Correct.
here, but every business might have a different tool which is right for them. So what are those tools, and how should they identify the right tool for branding for their business?
So AI is right now taking over almost every tool.
True.
ChatGPT is one of the best tools right now.
Okay.
Gemini, Google is
Sure.
one of the best tools. You know, they can create visual content, they can create verbal content, they can create sound content. Captions is one of the sound tools which we use, and any business should use all these tools.
Okay.
Because now graphic design per se is a commodity. Correct. They can use Canva, they can use Photoshop. Everything is now aided with AI.
Correct.
You just need to prompt now.
True.
You just need to say what's in your mind correctly, and then it's there. Correct. So those things will be always at your disposal. But let me just give you an example of a similar thing.
Yes.
If you get a kind of a subscription to a gym or a membership to a gym, the weights are going to be there.
Correct.
Okay, two things are going to matter. Do you wake up in the morning and go? That's the first thing.
Right.
And do it. And are you doing it right?
Correct.
So that's where the personal training comes in. Similarly, these tools are going to be at the disposal. But having these two things, are you consistent in doing that? Or do you need someone to do that for you?
Correct.
And are you doing the right stuff at the right time? And with the right intent? That is where people like me come in.
So branding, again coming back to when we say brand, most of the times we associate brands when we say ki the product or the commodity is priced high, and we say ki yeah, it's the brand value that they are charging.
Correct.
Right? But there was a famous dialogue in one of the Hindi movies which said ki ghadi sasti ho ya mehengi ho, time same batati hai.
Correct.
So there is one perspective ki pricing does not really matter, the product matters, and one perspective that once you have built the brand, the pricing goes high. So is it really necessary for a business to hike up their prices if they have done the branding right? And if yes, then what all should they think when they are working on the pricing part, just to associate it with the branding that they have done?
So what I believe is that the pricing should be directly proportional to the value.
Correct.
If by branding they have increased the value of their product, if they really listen to the customers and they have increased some things about their product, about their service, all these things, pricing should be going up.
Okay.
Sometimes what happens while even we are branding, we are doing a branding exercise with the company, we understand that the customer is not able to afford this service or this product. The target customer which we are targeting. So we also need to devalue it.
Got it.
Then we need to understand what kind of processes we are following, where we can cut short in terms of money, in terms of materials maybe at some point,
Correct.
in terms of advertising maybe, all these things.
Correct.
So it is not about just increasing the value or decreasing the value. It is basically giving the value, which is the right amount of value for the right price. Of course, if you see bigger brands and maybe brands which charge you a lot more,
right,
they fine tune the details so very much that aspect is built. So in Rolls Royce, there is a mark that every car you can basically choose to have that line on your car. Okay. So that line is valued at another $400,000-$500,000.
Oh,
okay. Because the brushstroke of that line on that car is done by a specific brush which is created from the horse's tail.
Okay.
And specific horse tail. Okay. And the person who creates that line is only one person in the world.
Right.
Okay. So they have leveraged that quality, they have leveraged that value to the customers, and it's an added value thing.
Does it also have an association with the customer segment we are focusing or we are targeting to? That another example would be that there are two brands, one which is dealing in pure silver jewelry, let's say, and another is a local brand which sells the same jewelry for some $50-$100, and this brand would sell it not less than 1,000. So their target group is clearly different. That ones who value the original silver, the genuinity of it, will obviously come to them. The ones who just want to have a stuff in their collection will go to the 50-100. So is it also related to the target group that what you want to focus as a brand, the pricing of the product in that case?
So the target group, of course, demands what kind of positioning and what kind of proposition the brand should make, of course. But that can have different co-symmetric circles all the way along.
Okay.
Because some things are aspirational, so the target groups can shift themselves to buy that. Okay. Not everyone buys gold every day.
Correct.
Okay, but at maybe some events or at some tithis, we go and buy gold. Correct. So, am I a target audience for the gold companies to tell their brand for? Maybe just a year I'm going to go there and buy something from them.
Then maybe not.
Okay, then maybe not. Okay, but there might be a lot of customers who buy gold every day,
Correct. Could be.
right?
Yeah.
That's their primary customers.
Hmm.
But should they communicate with me? Yes, they should.
Got it.
Because I have that recall in that aspect, and when I'm trying to make a decision of buying gold, I'll think of that. I'll think of that brand.
So there can be various segments of customers, and you can decide your branding or
Correct.
positioning in each
Correct.
of their contexts, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Got it. Over the years, I know that you have been passionate about design and each of it. So you have been observing big brands very closely, and I know you have a collection of whole cars and everything, and I'm sure you have a great observation there. And you have also been helping startups to build their brand and position themselves. In your observation and in your work with the startups, have you identified the mistakes that usually businesses do in branding, and would you be able to list some 5 top mistakes that usually most of the brand people do in branding businesses?
So the topmost mistake, what I believe, is not knowing what branding is.
Okay.
That's the mistake, and we are solving that problem here.
Correct.
The second mistake is always going to be piggybacking or copying someone else. So you might be getting a lot of messages on maybe Independence Day with their brands there. So what has their brand to do with Independence of India?
Okay.
Correct. That's the question they really need to ask. What that brand has to do with Ram Navami?
Correct.
Okay, that's the question they need to ask. And what kind of value that can the brand add for their customers or whoever they're sending to at Ram Navami about the whole aspect. So that's the second thing that people are doing. They have tools at disposal and they're just using them. That is the worst part of it. The third part of it is not knowing the actual value of your brand.
Okay.
So what happens in a startup phase is maybe your product is or service is really great, but your network is not. Then you devalue it.
Right.
Okay. And while growing, you start off keep the value the same. So while you're growing, you need to value, adding value in terms of all the aspects which are there, of course. So these are a few things. Of course, there are a lot of things that from a graphic design perspective, people don't really understand what human psychology aspects are. They need to learn that. There are basic graphic design principles people don't use. One of them is balance.
Okay.
So balance basically attracts people to things which are balanced out.
Correct.
Why anything? Why are these lines behind me straight and balanced? If something was haywire, it would have been not liked by many.
Correct.
Masses.
Correct.
Some might of course like it, but masses. So you need to understand when you're just creating a logo, a basic 5% example, you need to have balance in it. You have to have readability in it.
Correct.
If your logo is going on something very small and it's not readable, then your logo shouldn't have it. That is called as scalability. Then your logo should communicate exactly what it is, not a lot of things. These days, people only have 2 or 3 touch points. When they look at a visual or a graphics, they have only 2 to 3 touch points. Only those things. People try to put a lot of things in logos.
Got it. Right.
Correct. You don't need to have that. So if you see any bigger company logos, very simple, because the attention span is less.
Correct.
If you go back 100 years, the logo of universities, they were very detailed because the attention span was too much. So it's directly proportional to the attention span which is there right now.
Yeah, that's true. Right. And which of these mistakes, or are there any other specific mistakes in terms of, say, probably communication that hampers the credibility of the brand? Because once you have built the brand, that gets a lot of responsibility as a business to you. So what are those mistakes probably a business should avoid once they have created a brand to sustain their credibility in the market or with the customers?
Okay, so once a brand is grown bigger, they have an added responsibility of understanding the mass users. And understanding their emotions, because now the brand has the power of changing their behaviors. Correct. So it's a big responsibility that a brand has in order to shape someone's life. Correct. So having said that, the brand needs to be so responsible and very attentive in whatever they're talking about, whatever they're communicating to the customer, and the whatever way they are communicating with the customer, so that the customer emotions are not aggravated. In fact, they should be more valued and more elevated.
Got it.
So that is the core responsibility when any person, any politician for that matter, it's his first responsibility to its constituents. Similar, it's the first responsibility of any brand for their customers.
Got it. We discussed a lot of elements from the 5% of branding, which is the logo and those parts of it, the tangible parts of it, to the communication, consistency, and the whole SOP part of service businesses as well. So all of this in all actually looks very overwhelming for a business, usually with 1 or 2 founders who are running the business and are obviously in a growth stage, but they have their 10 other day jobs to do. So what is the right point that they approach an agency and say कि ना आप देख लो अभी ये हम इससे ज़्यादा नहीं कर पाएंगे. What is that point and how should they identify the right agency for branding their business?
Okay, so first of all, there are two questions here. When to actually address branding in a formal manner? That is the first question. The second is
how to identify the agency.
Answering the first question, there is no right time for that.
Okay.
As I said earlier, but a business owner's main job is to get him out of the day-to-day jobs. As he gets out of it, he'll get that bandwidth.
Okay.
And at that time, that should be done.
Okay.
So what happens is many a times that person goes into a parallax effect of I can do this something, I can do this better than someone else. I'll keep on doing that. So that becomes a professional boutique.
Correct.
And the professional brands are grown in a different manner. If they want to build their business as a brand, you need to deviate your work. Okay. You need to address things for growth, and branding is a part of growth.
Correct.
So you need to get out of, not completely, but you need to get out of at least 50% of your day-to-day obligations and day-to-day activities in order to grow your business as well. So that is the first thing, but it's nothing related to brand, but that is the first step that 2-3 people found, 3-person team should do. Okay.
Got it.
Coming to a second question, if the agency knows what really branding is, and they are not talking about a logo, and they are not talking about visual, they are not talking about trends. If they really know what the core and the soul of brand is, the soul of the personality of the company is, then and of course, if you resonate with that company, if that company or that people who are branding you are resonating with your vision, if they are understanding your vision, if they are value adding in your vision,
got it.
Of course you should take it. Second of all, you should always look for the network that they are bringing in as well.
Okay.
So what happens is, it's not just, branding is not just about creating those things, creating the brand book. It is about actually going into markets which the company is not yet diversified into, and get those benefits as well.
Okay. So the branding agency is actually supposed to do much more than just giving the brand book, is what
they are
saying.
supposed to.
Okay. Yeah, I think this brings clarity in terms of what should I look for in a branding agency.
Correct.
Once I as in an entrepreneur has given their business to brand to an agency,
Correct.
What are those checkpoints, or where should they check okay if it is going right? Where should they, because branding is a complete creative process, and not all entrepreneurs themselves might be as creative, but they surely know the vision clearly.
Correct.
So is there that friction of the vision and the creativity, and where all should those checkpoints be to see कि okay ये सही चल रहा है?
Okay. So now there are with AI and everything, now there are a lot of tools which actually make the subjective kind of an approach of a brand exercise to an objective approach.
Oh, okay.
There are some deliverables, of course.
Okay.
There are some tangible outcomes,
Correct.
of course.
Correct.
There are some intangible outcomes, of course. If the person understands and can implement the intangible outcomes, that's where the brand will be succeeding. If there are only tangible outcomes, the brand won't succeed.
Okay.
So if you are going to a brand exercise and only visual branding is done, only graphic design is done, and your team doesn't align with that brand, your own team doesn't align with that brand, how can you expect your customers to align with that brand? If you yourself as a promoter are not aligning with that brand. So for example, if someone is starting a digital company, that person needs to be a digital person first.
Correct.
That person needs to wear a digital watch. That person needs to be the best person in that digital industry, in that vicinity. The person is starting a gaming company. That person, and it starts with a person.
Absolutely.
That person needs to be known for gaming.
Got it.
Steve Jobs, he didn't invent anything, but he was known for inventions. Correct. Because his thought process was like that.
Correct. You just mentioned that people first, it starts with a person, or people
Correct.
associate with a person.
Correct.
And these days, at least, we have seen a lot of businesses being known because as with their founder.
Yes.
Okay, this is the person and that is their business.
Yes.
So which means personal branding these days is playing a vital role in business positioning, as well as at least how we perceive it.
Correct.
So do you see that happening, number one? And if yes, should businesses or the entrepreneurs really focus on personal branding for supporting their business branding?
So personal branding is a huge thing, and not just these days. It was there way back. Okay. So, for example, any big company which was built maybe 100 years before did a lot of personal branding. Rockefeller, for that matter, he had a huge personal branding. Then he built a lot of companies. Then he built all the things that he created in New York. Correct. Then, for example, Louis Vuitton is a personal name. Correct. Hermes is a personal. Gucci is a personal name. Correct. So all these aspects start with one person, and that's the personal name, Tata. Okay. People resonate with that person.
Correct.
Okay. There was a time in between that people didn't want to add personal names because selling of a company was a huge aspect. Correct. So if you are selling of a company, if you want to that is in your vision, which is not wrong, of course. If that is in your vision, associating your name with it might be a problem. Correct. But of course, personal branding adds a lot of value, as people are now getting a lot of bombardment from ads from companies. They are resonating with the people behind those companies. So if I'm resonating with someone, that will obviously build my brand. And that's why people these days are doing a lot of personal branding. But the first check that they need to do in order to do a personal branding is, are they aligned with the company?
Correct. So actually, when I thought of this question, I was actually thinking of a known, very famous brand in Maharashtrian cuisine, which is Purna Brahma. And the founder, Jayanti Khathare, she makes sure that whenever she's making at least a public appearance or on a social media, she's wearing nawari, which is a traditional Maharashtrian attire. So her carrying nawari or presenting herself in that way actually associates with her business having an authentic Maharashtrian cuisine. So that kind of personal branding, and can all kind of businesses take up personal branding, or is it restricted to some businesses as in sector wise as well?
Every business can do that. Right from Microsoft, Bill Gates has a personal brand. Right?
Yes.
Satya Nadella has a personal brand. Sundar Pichai has a personal brand. In all the other companies as well, there are people who are driving forces behind the company, and that's why two things happen. One, the customer is kind of acquainted to it. The customer resonates with it, and it is huge for talent acquisition as well.
Correct. Absolutely.
So if an entry level Google person meets Sundar Pichai once, correct, being him a brand, it helps that person to aspire. Correct to that level. So even that is something that you should think about while building a brand. You gave me an example, amazing example of Purna Brahma, and that's what basically adds the recall value.
Correct.
When
Absolutely.
you think about Maharashtra, you think about Nawari, you think about Maharashtra cuisine, you might be thinking about Shivaji Maharaj, you might think about the old forts and all these things, correct? The architecture.
Correct.
There are some traditions in Maharashtra that you think about. So what essentially was done was the association with Nawari and the association with
Food.
authenticity of the food.
Correct. Correct.
So it's not just food which is celebrated there, it's the authenticity of the food which is celebrated, because now Nawari is an authentic Maharashtrian
That's right.
element.
That's right. Dhruva, I think this was a master class for branding, and we covered a lot of aspects which I'm sure the viewers of this podcast would make sure that they follow it when they're doing the branding. But probably to take a little more, speed to this and bring a little fire in this, if we can have a quick fire, rapid fire round with you. I have a few questions
Yes.
listed. So, if an entrepreneur listening today could take just one action to improve their branding right now, what could that be?
Consistency in messaging.
Okay. A branding myth you would love to burst forever.
Logo is not branding.
Okay. If a business has 10,000 rupees for branding, what is the first thing they should spend on?
To improve themselves and knowing what brand is better.
Okay. Most common DIY branding blunder small businesses make.
They copy and paste things. That is the most common thing.
Okay. Your go-to test to check if a brand feels right.
You keep it with the aspiration brand which is there. You keep it side by side and you will understand.
Okay. If branding were a person, what personality trait would it absolutely need to have?
The nourishment.
Okay. Okay. And which emotion should branding aim to trigger first?
Maybe aspiration is what I think, but there might be an array of emotions that a brand should basically engage that person with.
Okay. I think that was crisp, real, and straightforward to the points, and from the experience, of course. Loved it. Thank you so much
Awesome.
for your time, Dhruva.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that this whole conversation brings in a lot of aspects that you all would like to list down and start working on your brand consciously now. As you know, you have always been working on it, but now start a conscious effort to it. We are bringing a series of very relevant topics under the Dream Big series of podcasts, and I'm sure that you will gain from each one of it. So stay tuned, subscribe to our YouTube channels, and also follow deAsra and Yashasvi Udyojak on all social media accounts. Thank you.